Good evening. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate everyone participating in our lecture tonight. I'm Cindy Harris, Volunteer Services Liaison, and I help oversee programming for Keep Grapevine Beautiful. And on behalf of the Keep Grapevine Beautiful Executive Director, Kathy Nelson, and our board, we want to thank you for attending tonight's lecture. We are excited to announce that we are launching new branding for our lecture series, and it will be called Eco Talks. And we feel like that is a good picture of the types of information that we provide for you. Eco standing for environment, community, and outdoors. So look for our new logo on promotional materials and our information moving forward. Tonight, I would like to introduce you to Jeff Reed. Jeff, are you with us?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for having me.
Wonderful. Jeff is a senior program manager with Oncor Electric's energy efficiency team. He currently manages Oncor's home energy efficiency program, which includes HVAC, residential efficiency, and insulation. The program is Oncor's largest residential program and includes the daily management of over 190 participating companies across the Oncor service area. Jeff also has managed the residential commercial solar, demand response, and the education government facilities energy efficiency programs during his 24-year tenure with the energy efficiency team. He has worked in the program development area, focusing on developing new programs and evaluating existing programs. In his 37 years with Oncor, besides energy efficiency, Jeff has spent his time in customer operations, working in metering, cash management, and the customer care center. He also was in the regulatory area during the deregulation process, which included working on ERCOT and PUCT rule development for the market. Jeff is a graduate from the University of Texas at Dallas and a fifth-generation Texan. So Jeff, welcome. We appreciate you being with us this evening. I'm going to turn off my video and let you begin. Participants, just want to let you know, feel free to post your questions in the Q&A. I've turned off chat, but go ahead, whenever you have questions, post them in the Q&A and we'll address those at the end. So thank you very much, Jeff. Go right ahead.
Thank you, Cindy. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. I always appreciate the time. I almost wish we were in Grapevine and I would have had me a glass of wine before and after. I love going to the wineries up there, but I'll have to find it here after we finish this meeting tonight. As Cindy said, I have been in the energy efficiency field for quite a while. We've seen some changes. We've seen a lot of new great things come onto the market, but it's still come to the basic thing of saving energy. So let's get started and see what we can cover tonight. Okay, just as an overview, who is Oncor? Of course, Oncor is the wires and poles company. We are one of the largest transmission companies in the country. A lot of the space out in West Texas. But right now we serve over 10 million customers, over 400 communities in 98 counties. We are the largest utility, which is wires and poles company in the state. Just as a quick overview, we've been in this market now for a while, but it's still surprising sometimes how it gets confusing, because it is confusing. Oncor is in the center of this deregulated market in Texas. We're that center circle. The generators are who generate all the power, send it through our lines, and then we deliver it to the residential and commercial houses. So yes, we were the ones that I guess controlled the switch during the ice storm, but you can't send what you can't get through the pipe. So that was a big mess. But I can tell you that the industry as a whole is really working on that. We do not bill the customer. You will not receive any bill from Oncor. Everything is done through the retail electric providers who you choose that works best for you, depending on what you want from them. Of course, we see the commercials. They're offering a wide variety of different types of programs, but that's just a quick overview. So let's get into the meats and bones of tonight. What is energy efficiency? There's basically two types. Energy conservation, which is you turn something off. You turn a light switch off, the power stops. You unplug something, the power stops. But you still need those powers. You still need that stuff at times. So what we can do is energy efficiency. Energy efficiency is installing high efficient equipment. We've got a picture of a light bulb there. Cindy had a picture of an LED light on her slide on her screen. That's gotten to be a very popular way of doing things. So what we concentrate on is energy efficiency. In the deregulated Texas market, when this was all being developed, when I started with Texas Power and Light, which was Texas Electric and Dallas Power and Light, and back then we gave rebates. You buy this piece of equipment, you'll get a $100 rebate on your next bill from TP&L or DP&L or Tesco. Well, that market changed. Well, the state still wanted to do energy efficiency. In their wisdom, they recognized that was still a valuable part of saving, of working in the Texas market. So since we're still regulated, and the utilities are still a regulated part of the deregulated industry, they said the utilities are going to do it. So they gave us the role of decreasing the demand of the whole Oncor service area. They set goals every year that we have to try to reach of saving energy. Basically what we do, if we can save 100 megawatts of power, then we've saved a power plant from having to be built. So that's kind of the whole goal of energy efficiency, is to have those kind of things happen. And that's where our programs come in. And this is what this is kind of talks about, is why energy efficiency. It's deemed to be the most cost-effective source of energy. Buying a new light bulb is a lot cheaper than buying a new HVAC, but we can all buy an LED light bulb. The cost of the KW or KWH is less than producing that KW or KWH. We know about the generation capacity during peak times. We'll talk about some programs that we have that are trying to help with that. So far, knock on wood, we've had some 100-degree days here in the Metroplex and throughout the state. And so far, so good. The capacity has kept up with it very, very well. We can also use energy efficiency to encourage early adoption. Those people that don't want to be on the cutting edge. The person that had the first solar array in your neighborhood, the first person that had a 20 SEER HVAC system, the first person that had reflective roofing shingles on their house. So we can help do that. We can help get that new technology into the market through some of our programs. We also have had a huge impact on increasing building codes. In Texas, we like to say we're pro-business, not pro-government, but the business people and the government people have realized that improving our energy codes can make a big impact on a monthly electric demand. So we've seen the building codes improve. At one point we had when I first started with the program, the company, one of our big programs was Energy Star New Homes. And that program was in place because the builders were building a lot of homes as cheap as they could, honestly. They weren't worried about putting insulation in the walls necessarily. They weren't worried about high levels of insulation in the attic. We all wanted fancy kitchens. We all wanted, all that kind of extra stuff. We didn't worry about energy efficiency. Well, now a lot of that stuff is in building codes. So now energy efficiency is already built into a lot of that. And we've seen the Energy Star program lag behind some building codes. City of Dallas, Grapevine, Plano, they have all been cutting edge on improving their building codes and doing things that make us build new businesses and new homes that are more energy efficiency. Let's get into a little bit of basics. I'm going to start off with just some very basic type of things, and we'll get deeper into technology as we get going. Don't panic. I heard Cindy say lecture. Hopefully I'll have enough pictures for you to look at and little stories to tell that it won't feel like a straight lecture. But we've got about 18, 20 slides to go through. So got about 20 to 25 minutes. So we can hopefully keep you interested and not make it be a waste of time missing whatever's on the Olympics tonight. Weatherization is pretty simple. If you've got a, oh, sorry about that. Let's see if I can go back. There you go. Weatherization is anywhere, if you're sitting in your house and you can feel a breeze with no fan on, or you can see light coming through it, then you need weatherization. So very, very simply, it's your house leaking. And if light or air is getting into your home, then that's costing you money. It's very easy in the wintertime when you feel it or hear that cold north wind blowing through your house. You can see that, back, we've all been tempted sometimes to stick a an old dish rag or a newspaper or something in those cracks. But really the right way to do it is with caulking and weather stripping. Anytime you can see those lights and see those breezes coming through your house, then that's an important thing to do. This house, I never liked this picture of the house because so far I've been in Texas my whole life, and I think I've been in 2 attics and 2 basements, and I really think they're probably wine cellars, but that's a different story. But this is a good illustration to show where to look in your house. The doors, the roof, the space between the ceiling and your living area, windows, around your ductwork. Number 6 is more talking about the ductwork in your attic. Because think about it, our attics may be insulated, but if you're paying for cold air coming through that air conditioning and you've got a leaky duct in that attic, then you don't want to you're not paying to cool your attic. So checking your ductwork. Window frames are always a big thing. And we'll talk about windows here specifically in just a minute. Another trick to do is have a candle. If you've got a candle somewhere near a light switch or a plug, and you just kind of hold it beside it, if that candle's flame is wiggling, then it's leaking. So you can buy a gasket to go around that window. Remember, if it's an interior wall, you don't need to gasket that because there's no outside air. These are the plugs and the windows and the doors and everything that faces outside to your outside area. Lighting is another one that's become really big and honestly has gotten more complicated. Probably when most of us were aware of light bulbs, you had one choice. A real thin incandescent light that might work for 6 months or might work for 6 years, and throw off heat. Remember all those. Well, then we got into energy saving incandescent bulbs. And these are still on the market, and you can still find just regular incandescent bulbs, but they come to an energy saving incandescent that lasts a little bit longer. It still has that heat problem on it, but it's still a better choice as far as energy efficiency goes. Now, when you go into the CFLs, and of course, when these first came above, we talked about the pigtails, and you can see a little picture there of one that's got the little piggy tail there. That's what we always thought of with CFLs. Well, CFLs have gotten a little bit better now. They're in a bulb shape. Some of us don't like the light, especially if you have somebody that puts on makeup in a bathroom. A CFL sometimes will yellow it out, maybe a little bluish tint. So that's not always the best deal. I know when we first started getting CFLs and started kind of pushing them, I replaced our bathroom light fixtures with these. And my better half was not real happy because she didn't like the way it made her look. It was hard to do her makeup when it was a bad color. So those didn't last long. The good news is they do last longer. They last about 10 times longer than an incandescent. So that's an option that you still have. But what we're seeing now are the LEDs, the light emitting diodes. These are the ones that last a long time. They can 75% more efficient, and they can get them in all kinds of colors. You can even get them programmable now that you can change colors off your smartphone. We see that a lot at Christmas, that you can buy a string of LEDs and hang them on your house, and you can make it blink, you can make it dance, you can make it sing. Well, maybe not sing, but you can do all these things with it. And they don't give off the heat. They don't give off the heat that some of these other lights do. So LEDs are a good choice. Now, again, just like everything, you got to be a little careful. Sometimes you get what you pay for. So if you buy a real cheap LED, you may not get 25 times longer. Honestly, you may get 6 or 7, 8 months out of it. So just be aware of that. Sometimes paying an extra couple of dollars for a 3-pack or a 6-pack might be worth it if you really want the lighting. You'll also see something like lumens that are in lighting. There's different kind of lumens, soft and warm and those kind of things. And that's kind of to get what you need best. I mentioned the bathroom, the kind of lighting that you have in the bathroom is going to be different than what you have in your kitchen. So just kind of be aware of those kind of things. The major hardware stores have become really good on having big areas of lighting. So you've got a lot of choices. But again, it can be confusing. So take a little time, try different models, try different manufacturers, and see what works best for you. Now we're getting to some of the big users. Air conditioning, excuse me. Air conditioning is our biggest, heating and cooling systems in our home are our biggest users. When I first kind of started dabbling in this business, something around a 10 SEER was considered great. A 10 SEER, in fact, I think we paid our first rebates on 10 SEER. Now you don't even qualify if it's not a 16 SEER. And now you can find them at 22 and 24 SEER. And this is just a simple chart that just kind of shows you the difference. Now, this graph is based on a 3-ton unit. So you can see how that is. The operating costs, how it goes down as the sewer rating goes up. So, again, it's kind of what you pay for. And I understand, believe me, I've got probably the next major thing I have to do in my home is going to be a new HVAC system. And as much as I'd love to put a 21, 22, 24 sewer in my house, I don't know that it's going to be worth the price. So I will probably be looking in the 17, 18 range, and looking for some of those things. And you still have a tremendous savings, especially when you're talking about a unit that may be 10 or 15 years old. And a sewer rating does go down. The efficiency rating goes down over time, no matter if you clean it every year. It's just an aging thing. It's hard. You buy a car that gets 30 miles to a gallon, and in 15 years, it's not probably going to be getting 30 miles to the gallon. It's the same way with our air conditioning. So one of the things you look for is a sewer rating. Sewer rating is seasonal energy efficiency ratio. If I was an engineer, I'd go in and tell you how that's, figured out. But luckily, we've got people in the industry that make these real nice sheets and tell us what sewer ratings are based on the model numbers from the different manufacturers. It's an independent agency that rates this, and then it gets an Energy Star rating on top of that. So always look for the Energy Star rating. There's different ways to go on air conditioning systems. There's heat pumps. Now heat pumps are most efficient, or you see the most savings when you have an all electric house. The biggest user I've ever seen in any home is an electric furnace, especially on a cold winter, because that thing is just straight heat. It's just like having an oven with a fan blowing across it, basically. So there's a lot of heat being blown out. With a heat pump, the heat pump will actually circulate air and warm it through a process, through a heat pumping process. The thing there is that some people don't like, because there's always a little draft in the house. So, there could be a comfort level there. So talk to your HVAC guy. The person that comes to your house is going to be the best expert. And we're going to talk a little bit about HVAC contractors in a minute and look at that. Let's talk a little bit about windows, because we get a lot of calls, and I've talked to a lot of customers over the years that are either very happy that they got new windows, or they're very, very disappointed. And a lot of it comes down to, like a lot of things, the sales pitch. If you have somebody that's going to tell you you're going to cut your bill by 2/3 by putting in new windows, then you must live with a bunch of windows facing west with no shade, or they may be overestimating your savings. So my thoughts on this is windows can be helpful, and then there's a neutral piece on this. On the helpful side, a low E, high efficiency window can help control usage of the HVAC and improve comfort. The biggest assistance that you're going to get on saving energy, now not view, not anything else, I'm talking about just saving energy, are on windows that face the west and south side because of the sun. That's where our sun is. And that's where shade is limited. If you live on a nice shaded lot with a bunch of pecan trees or something like that, and the west sun doesn't bother you, in fact, you can sit out under your trees this afternoon and you're pretty comfortable, then putting new windows in is not going to save you a lot of money. Now, you may need them, but it's on the energy efficiency side, that shade is going to have a bigger impact and a bigger comfort level than spending $8,000 or $10,000 for new windows. And the same way in the south. Of course, in the wintertime, you do see some north value, but the biggest savings is going to be on the heating side or the cooling side when we had the heat build up. New windows will also help if you're losing seals. If you've got leaky windows, while you can recaulk them and do some things, that's not always the best, and it's can be a messy or even difficult to do it yourself project. There's definitely people in the business that can do that for you. And that's something to look at. If you've got a couple of leaky windows, that may be a better option than replacing them all. But again, just look at your situation. Installing new windows can be expensive. So like any high efficiency measure, whether it's HVAC, windows, solar, which we'll talk about here in a second, see what works best for you. Are you realistically, what's the payback time? If you spend $10,000 and you're going to save $500 a year, well, in my simple liberal arts major degree, that's 20-year payback. Are you going to be there in 20 years? If you are, then maybe it's a good investment. If you're going to save $1,000 a year, then that gets cut in half. So look at those kind of things. See what's best for you. There's a minimum improvement. Again, I'm just talking about an energy efficiency savings. I'm not talking about view, or anything else. I'm just talking about energy efficiency savings. The usage on the north and east sides of the home is going to be minimal. And then high areas of shade, just like I mentioned. When you got that high shade, putting in new windows is not going to be a big energy efficiency saving for you. You may want them, especially if you've got a beautiful black backyard that's shaded, or you're on Lake Grapevine, or you're at Possum Kingdom or something like that, and you're looking out over the lake. You may want some big high windows, and you'll just put up with the high electric bills. So just be careful when you're buying windows. But this is the same thing with any high price dollar. I mean, you don't go out and buy the first car you look at. You shop around, you look around, get estimates, get people to come in and talk to you. Okay, let's get off something that we goes from something big to something really small. This got really big a couple years ago. It's called phantom loads, and I won't spend a lot of time on this, but just as a basic rule of thumb, if you walk through a room at night and you see a light on a plug, a little LED light, then that's using energy. Whether it's a charger, whether it's your dish box or your cable box, your modem, whether it's a clock radio, a dishwasher light, whatever it may be. If that light is on and it's plugged in, then it's using energy. Now, reducing all that, you're not going to save $100 a year, but you may save $8 glass of wine a month. Over a year, you paid for a case of wine. So, there's these little things like this. I just want you to be aware of the things in your home that use energy. And again, it's a little things that add up. But if you got 8 chargers, if you've got a couple of kids and they've got a charger for their phone, they've got a charger for their laptop, they've got a charger for their game station, all those things add up, so just be aware of that. Sometimes when we're looking at energy usage, those kind of things pop up. Like I said, you're not going to save hundreds of dollars a year, but it is something to be aware of that can come in. The EPA did a study several years ago, and they say 10% of your monthly energy bill is that. I think that's probably high. But if you think about it, if a couple of kids would now have their own game stations, sure, it could start back building up. Just, again, something to think about. In my career, I have always been, what can I do the cheapest that's going to save me the most? So we've come up with this list of just some tips, some things like that. You may agree, you may not agree. 78 degrees is a hard sell on a day like today. But when it's 100 degrees outside, the best system has a hard time keeping your house 20 degrees cooler than what the outside temperature is. And I've seen that time after time and seen study after study show that. So if it's 100 degrees outside, even if your thermostat, you pull it down to 72, it's never going to get there till probably midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning. And your system's going to run the whole time. Again, we have to put up, we have to have comfort to put up with a higher electric bill. So just be aware of that. But that's kind of a general rule that the industry as a whole is stuck with for a pretty long time now. Keep your blinds closed. Keep your windows dressings closed. If you've got those blinds, especially again on your west side, on the south side, those things can really help make a difference. Ceiling fan. This is another question we get. Every year I'll have somebody tell me that I'll keep my ceiling fans on all day. Well, who's in the house? Well, just nobody. Well, it's a wind chill. Think about the wintertime when the wind blows and you get cooler. That's exactly what a ceiling fan does. A ceiling fan is for the comfort of the people in the room. Again, a ceiling fan is not a great big user of electricity, but it does wear out over time, and there is some usage. I mean, if you've got 6 ceiling fans in your house, you run them 24 hours a day, then yeah, it can add up. So the ceiling fan or oscillating fan, anything like that, is just there to comfort the people in that room at that particular time. Again, this is kind of a common sense one, but something we don't think about. It's getting a little bit better now that we're switching to LED. If you've got can lights in your kitchen, you know how hot it can get standing under that can light. It's like being on a stage at a theater, and those are putting heat into your home. So if you've got a lamp that has that kind of heat that comes off of it, move it away from your thermostat. Don't let it be near your thermostat. Be somewhere in the central area of the room. Because again, that's adding heat load to your home. And of course, ovens. And the people that cook. Again, back when I used to start, we always said wives, and that's not the truth anymore. I know in my home, it's probably about 50-50 or even 60-40 that I do a lot of the cooking now that I've been working from home. But whoever does the cooking, on a hot day, give them a break. Pick it up, use a microwave, send the barbecue out, the smoker out to cook, because that's just going to add to the house too. Let's get into a little bit more specifically about our programs as we head into this final stretch. We get questioned all the time is, why does Oncor do energy efficiency? Why are you trying to cost your company money? And as I stated earlier in the presentation, we're kind of mandated to do that. So we have a list of programs on the residential and commercial side, and I'll just real briefly touch commercial. I want to hit residential heavier. But our program looks at getting this. We find a program, find one of our programs that fits what you need. Don't try to force us into something. Don't try to force one of our programs into an area that you may not need. One of the things that I'm going to emphasize over these next couple of slides is that we are hand-tied of what we can do directly with a customer. We cannot pay any incentive directly to you. Any incentive can only go through the company that's approved to be in our program and offers the program to you. So even though you're our utility customer, our energy efficiency provider customer is that installer. So if an air conditioning guy comes in and says, hey, when I put this system in, give Jeff a call over at Oncor and he'll send you a rebate check for $500. They don't know what they're talking about because that's illegal. So don't believe that. Go to our website, takealoadoff.texas.com. You can type in your zip code and it'll give you a list of all the providers that are approved to be in that program in your zip code. Our role of this is paying the incentive. We calculate the savings based on the type of measure it is. If they add 6 inches of insulation into your home, that may be a $200 incentive that we can pay them, that they can then pass to you. They can pass it direct. They can pass the incentive directly back to you, or they can discount your final payment by the amount of the incentive. Our largest incentive is, like I mentioned a while ago, is a heat pump. If you installed a 5-ton heat pump, and it was a high efficiency heat pump, you may qualify, your unit may qualify for up to about $2,400. Now we will pay that incentive to the installer. Then how he passes it back to you should be an agreement between you and him. And you'll know that it's in our program because we require you to sign what's called a host customer agreement. And it'll show you and tell you how our program works and kind of the steps of that. So you should be aware of the process from the very beginning. Just here's a list of our programs on the commercial side, pretty basic, what you'd expect. We look at motors, we look at big air conditioning systems. We've got a commercial solar program. And then the load management program, I'm going to talk just real briefly about on the commercial and residential side, because this program is actually a program that pays companies to decrease their power, their demand during peak times. So if ERCOT called an emergency tomorrow because of high usage, we have about, I don't know what they have now, about 20, 25 big, large users that we will actually pay to shut down or to reduce their power during that emergency. On the residential side, we have another program that does the same thing. But again, we're not allowed to control that switch. I can't turn somebody off. I can only request them to turn it off. And then if they do turn it off, I have to verify that they did do it, and then we pay the incentive. So there are programs out there that are specifically working to try to control the capacity market, the demand market in our state, in our ERCOT area. On the residential side, I mentioned a while ago, Energy Star Homes. We're actually bringing that program back because we believe that the market is ripe for improvement in energy efficiency. We just started this program. In fact, I was just recently announced as the manager of this program. So we're real excited about that. We've got a target low income, and we're going to talk specifically about some of these other programs. Again, here's the commercial, just some ideas that we have. Lighting and chillers are two big measures in our programs. If you do have a small commercial business, we do have a program geared to just small commercial. If you're an energy manager or an executive at a large company, we've got a program to help that too. But as we get to the residential, these are the ones that really have the impact. Residential energy efficiency program, home energy efficiency program is the program that I manage. And it's geared mainly to air conditioning, about 90% of our installs. And we do about 1,000 units a month, basically this time of year. About 90% of those are straight HVAC or heat pump changeouts. We do not have a very large installation program. The incentives are just not very big, and I can't get a lot of companies to participate. So our program is mainly there on air conditioning. You have to be in the Oncor program. So, there's parts of Grapevine, North Grapevine, that are served by other utilities. That wouldn't qualify for our company, our program. You'd have to go through that utility. You can always tell if you're an Oncor customer by looking at your meter. If it says Oncor, then we deliver the meter to your house. Also, another way of knowing that is if you choose your retailer. If you choose your retailer, then you're either probably a customer of ours or Texas New Mexico Power in this general area. Again, as I mentioned, it's heating and cooling. We also have a low income weatherization program. That's an income-based program. This is a program that the state requires us to do. It also will cover, it almost will cover almost 100% of the cost of putting insulation in your home. So for qualified low-income customers, this is a very good program for them to help improve their savings. At the middle of last year, we started a new HVAC program for this market, for the low-income program. It's been a little slow to take off because we can't do that one 100% because we still have to meet state efficiency levels. So it's a little bit harder to get people to be able to pay $7,000-8,000 for a brand new HVAC system in this market when we can only pay maybe $1,000 or $1,500 incentive on it. So it's out there and it's something to look at for you to do it. It's a very successful program. It's something that again we're required to do, and it's something that we're proud of because we have touched a lot of people and really helped a lot of people in this program. Let me talk a little bit about solar. We're in the home stretch now because we always get this question. Solar has become the new windows. We've got, in fact, just the last couple of weeks, I had a guy stop by my house that was going to make my energy bill zero. 30 minutes later, when I finally let him leave, he understood how the market really worked. When a customer calls me and says, hey, I spent $25,000 for a new solar system and I'm still getting a bill, my first question to him is, what did you pay for your batteries? Their next answer is, I didn't buy batteries. Then you must get pretty hot at night because you're still getting an electric bill at night. And it's like a light bulb went off in their head. Oh yeah, my air conditioner still runs at night. My refrigerator still runs at night. So unless you're getting a full battery and solar system, you're not going off the grid. I'm sorry. You got to have some way to store that energy and be able to run at night. So be careful of people that promise you're going to get a zero bill. Because you're still going to get it. If our meter is still connected to your house, you're still going to get charged with utility cost. So you're still going to have that utility cost on your home. Another thing that sometimes happens is people think that during the ice storm, I talked to several customers that had solar systems, but they weren't working. Well, it's because of city codes. The city will not allow if the city, most codes, it's fire electrical codes is what it is. And when you think about it, it makes sense. When there's no power coming in and the meter or the customer's solar system recognizes that there's no power coming in, it shuts off. Because the last thing we want to do is have a fireman or a utility guy out there working the lines and all of a sudden the solar system is backfeeding into the grid and they're electrocuted. Now there are ways to get away with that, but you have to install special equipment that disconnects your solar system from the distribution system. So you'd have to disconnect it, throw a switch to make it come on and off. But again, that's electrical cost that you'd have to have when the system's installed. So it's just something to think about. You probably have seen, probably everybody that's in any type of area has seen solar panels in their neighborhood. And it is a great thing. I've looked at it several times. I personally can't justify the cost for my situation. Because the thing to remember is Oncor doesn't buy back the energy. So our only role in this is to measure the amount of energy that your solar system may put back on the grid. If your solar system doesn't put anything back on the grid, then all you're going to do is lower your demand, which is helpful. That's helpful and useful. But I also talk to customers all the time that think they're going to make money all the time, but they can't find a retailer who will pay them the retail price of what they put back on. So that's another piece of this solar market that can get really, really confusing, is you have to find a retailer that will give you credit for your excess energy. The state does not make them pay you. So you have to find a retailer that will do that. They're out there. I haven't really been on the solar side in a couple of years, but at the time, there's probably 4 or 5 retailers that would do that. There may be more now. But I guess the bottom line on any of these high dollar measures, whether it's solar or HVAC or windows is do your homework, do your research. Power to Choose, the state website, has got a page out there just on renewables. So it'll explain to you how the retail market works. Oncor's role, again, is just strictly measuring the electricity that comes through the meter back to the grid. So we'll pass that meter on. If you get a big system or it's a cloudy day, we've got days in January that it's a bright, sunny day and your house may not be using much electricity. Well, you may actually be making some money that day. So find a retailer that's going to give you credit for it. It's not going to come from Oncor. It's going to come from whoever you choose as a retailer. Now, our incentive program for residential is pretty small. It's not near as big as it used to. It's just because we were seeing so many systems installed without our incentive, it was hard to justify it because we weren't causing the market to move. We did do in 2021, I believe Josh did about 1,200, 1,400 arrays, and the average incentive was about $5,600, $5,700. You think about it, if you paid $20,000 for that, then you got $15,000, and then what do you need to save a year to make it cost effective for you? If you're one of those guys that buys and builds a house, buys and sells a house every 5 years, you may not be worth it for you. Just look at your situation. That's what we ask for, is to do that. The commercial, it makes a little bit more sense because we can pay a little bit bigger incentive because the arrays are bigger. But again, it gets more expensive. But it's just one of those things to just take your time, don't rush into it, find out what's best for you. If you've got a neighbor that's got solar or putting in new windows or even putting a new HVAC system, knock on the door, give them a call, say, hey, what did you find out? Why did you choose this installer? Why did you choose to go solar? And that's the best way. Friends, family, people you trust is the way to do it. Here's some contact information for our residential team. Said I'm the senior manager over the home energy efficiency side. Joanna Gomez runs our low income. We actually have a full staff of inspectors that do verification. The state has a whole set of rules that our programs have to meet. For us to pay an incentive, we have to be able to verify that. So we actually do, up to COVID, we were actually doing on-site inspections. Now we're doing a lot of photo verification and phone calls, but we have to be able to verify that what we're reporting to the state was installed. And then Josh Ameder runs our solar program. So I know I've done a lot of talking, and Cindy, I don't know if we're taking questions or how we want to handle some of that, but I think we've got some time. Sure. I went a little over. I was hoping it'd be a little bit shorter, but I haven't done this in a while. It was kind of fun.
Yeah, it was great. It really was. I mean, I have learned so much, and the reason why we offered or asked you to speak, Jeff, is because we had so many people attend our lectures that wanted to know about this program and understand more about energy efficiency. So no, this is exactly what people are asking for. So let me see, I've got a couple of questions here. Let's see. So Linda wants to know, well, you kind of touched on this when you were talking about ceiling fans. She wants to know whether or not it matters if they turn off the lights when they leave the room. So I guess that would kind of be in the same, same vein as the ceiling fan.
Yes, ma'am, it would be. It would be. I guess it depends. The older I'm getting, the more I'm having little night lights at night where I can see when I get up in the middle of the night, because I'd rather have those. I'd rather stumble around than be blinded. So it's kind of that same thing. It just depends. If you need the lighting, then sure. I would, if you're going to do that, if you're going to run your ceiling fans, then I might find some little LEDs to put in there, because then they won't be producing the heat, because get those candelabras that's got the little candle-like lamps in there, and those can throw out heat. So if you find some LEDs that plug in, that would help. So if you're going to do that, then I would suggest getting an LED or some type of CFL. Yeah,
I think I have ceiling fans in my house that probably heat up my room about 10 or 15 degrees. Because the ceiling fan, the lights are together, and all they take are those little chandelier bulbs that give you a 3rd-degree burn.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, but this is very helpful to know, because we leave our ceiling fans on at our house 24/7. So I'm going to get back in the habit of turning those off. Thank you, Jeff.
If you got pets, they'll be happy.
Linda also wants to know, what about letting the water run while shaving? So I am assuming she's concerned about the energy, that you would use heating the The
hot water.
hot water heater, yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I didn't really talk much about water heating, and it is anything that produces heat or produces cold is going to be our big users. So electric water heater is one of the bigger users. So yeah, anytime, it's a water conservation tip, of course, that we've really kind of gotten the habit of. But yeah, running hot water like that, for 3 or 4 minutes is lowering the temperature of your water heater, so it is going to kick off and run more. It's the same way on a dishwasher. We just bought a new dishwasher, and it's got some temperature gauges that I didn't have on my old one. So, it's kind of a different thing to do. Of course, I get educated by my wife that the hotter the water, the cleaner the plates. So, so I think we'll probably keep it on a hotter setting where I don't have to manually wash them.
Right.
Yes, anything that produces heat or cold is going to be our big users. It's like if you've got a freezer in the garage. Yes, I've got one. It's not the best place because that garage stays shut up all day. It's probably 90, 100 degrees out there. So that freezer is going to run. And it's probably your second freezer or your old refrigerator, so it's not very efficient. So that's some of that phantom load. I should have mentioned more specifically that, because we said that I did several years ago out in East Texas, I did a house call back when we could do this. And this old farmer had 4 old refrigerators on his front porch, and all of them running. And that's where he kept his fish bait and his cold beer and everything like that. And he just could not understand why his electric bill was $200 a month when he had no air conditioning.
Right.
And,
and a lot of us have that garage fridge. Yeah.
Didn't even think about it. Didn't even need that extra set of eyes. So, so just something to be aware of, that because it'll definitely run all day. I know every time I opened my garage door today, I heard that freezer running, and I just said, I'm fixing to give a talk on energy efficiency, and I can't even practice it.
Well, we are learning from your mistakes, Jeff. Thanks.
Oh, you learn a lot.
All right, let's see. Monica says, regarding phantom load, if we have a bunch of chargers plugged into an electric strip that can be shut off, will that reduce phantom load?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. In fact, they make those kind of smart strips now that if you have a modem box that you want to keep on all the time, it'll have a place in there that won't shut off when you throw that switch. It'll bypass it. So there's smart strips now that'll do that. Again, they're a little bit more expensive, but you've got the option of turning those in. So you can have your 3 chargers in there in your modem box, and you can turn off your chargers and leave that modem box running. So yes, ma'am, that's a great way of doing it. And those smart strips or just a regular strip would be a great way of doing it.
Okay, so if you use a power strip and you turn it off at the switch, is it still pulling a little tiny bit of electricity if it's plugged into the wall?
If a light comes on, if there's a light on it and it shows, and probably the light will shut off because the light shows whether it's on or off. So no, ma'am, and that's always the thing to look for is a light.
That makes sense. Good. Okay. So let's see. Laura wants to know what are the plans to bury overhead power lines that spark during storms and are potentially dangerous?
That's a great question, and one our industry is wrestling with, because burying electrical lines is very, very expensive, especially when you talk about transmission lines. I would say the vast majority of new that I see, I haven't been in that side of the business in a while, so what I'm hearing is talking to electrical engineers and planners in our company, but they are looking at ways of putting more and more lines underground. Of course, the thing we've got to look at is it's going to shut down our streets as we bury those lines, because a lot of the right of way runs besides our major thoroughfares. So it's kind of we've got homeowners and residential people that want us to do that. Then we've got cities that don't want to help pay to move the utilities or to repair the streets or move the streets. So it's really a money situation, really. I live in my addition's fairly new, and ours is above ground, but I can tell you it doesn't stop my lights going out much more frequently than other places. I don't have to worry about wind, but I've had a flood, transformer box flood out. We had fire ants in it a couple of years ago that shorted it out. So there's not a perfect world until we find a way to do it without lines. But it's something that the industry is very sensitive to. In California, a lot of the fires out there are caused by electrical transmission lines falling. So it is something that the industry is aware of. I just wish I had a better answer.
Is there technology in the works, Jeff, for delivering electricity without lines? I just made that up.
I think probably in a perfect world that my grandkids maybe or great grandkids will be is every house will have a battery. where it's self-generating at their home, where there's really no need for utility, unless we're servicing the batteries or something like that.
Right.
I know NASA and some of the things like that have tried to develop ideas of charging satellites or things like that without lines through infrared or stuff like that. But it really comes down to solar and wind being solar or wind or atomic.
Yeah.
Where you're kind of doing it yourself right there on the site.
Interesting. Okay. Holly wants to know how hot water heaters, a traditional hot water heater versus a tankless.
Tankless.
Yeah.
Tankless do use less energy because they heat up instantaneous. So there's a quicker. They don't run as long to heat the same amount of water. So there are some savings there. We don't really push one over the other because it's almost a push in some ways because of the cost you pay to get it compared to a traditional electric furnace, electric water heater.
Yes.
Electric water heaters are pretty cheap.
Yeah.
Gas is more, but then when you get to the instantaneous or those kind of things, you get probably triple, 4 times as much.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great technology. It's something else I've looked at my house for. Probably next time I have a water heater, I'll probably do that. But I've got gas water heat. So, I just don't see the need of spending extra money to put something in like that. Yeah. But yes, ma'am, it will save some.
Okay. All right. Dick says he has a 16-year-old 16 SEER 5-ton air conditioning system. Is there a ballpark number for how many years?
That's a great question. That's a great question. My inspector sent me a note last week with a picture of one that was 33 years old. Yeah. And at best we could see, that was the oldest one that we had ever seen. In fact, the company that made it, I can't remember now who it hasn't been in business in quite a while.
Well, you missed mine. We just replaced one that was around 30 years old at our house.
There you go. Yeah. It's not unusual. Yeah. Oh yeah. And you probably replaced the capacitor or maybe even a motor on it. Probably have done some work on it. Yeah. I would say that for a well-made, top of the line or fairly good equipment, that 15 to 16, 17 years is probably normal. My home was built 15 years ago, and I still have the existing unit. Mm-hmm. I had to put 2 capacitors on it, but besides that, it's done a pretty good job. And mine's a 5-ton too. Mm-hmm. I would say you're on the tail end side of it, because if it was 16 SEER when you put it in, it's probably down now to 11 or 12. So yeah, it's on that. It is on that side of it for sure. Of course, as soon as I say that, it could go out tonight. Or it may run another 3 or 4 years.
Right.
It's one of those things. I'm kind of of the belief that unless my bills just get really, really high, mm-hmm. and we get really, really uncomfortable, as long as it's producing, I'm not going to replace it.
Yeah. And then that's the decision we had to make at our house. I mean, it was so the electrical bill was so high, and there were so many rooms in the house mm-hmm. that was no longer cooling. Right. We had to make the jump. And so it's pretty overwhelming, but it's an investment in the home that if you decide to resell, people are going to appreciate that.
That's right. Another thing we're seeing a little bit more of is what's called mini split units. You may see a company called Dankin that's been advertising. And lots of times you'll see these on auxiliary buildings or people's shops, and they're basically a higher efficient window unit, both heat and cool. And it kind of goes, you cut a place into your wall, and it doesn't need the compressor, the condenser, everything is in one piece. Where we see it are people that are converting garages into bedrooms. Mm-hmm. So instead of having to run ductwork or anything like that, they put in this Daikin mini split, and it'll run both systems. I also have seen it in some empty nesters, where they don't necessarily need to cool the whole house, mm-hmm. Or heat the whole house. So they put in a couple of mini splits, and then they just worry about the master bedroom, the living area, and the kitchen. And in those extra bedrooms, they just don't turn on the whole house unit. Yeah. But they still have it ready if they ever sell the house.
Yeah.
People come over.
That's great. Good. Okay. So let's see. Marlene wants to know the website where she can find more information about the residential energy efficiency program is Take a Load Off Texas.
Texas. All one mashed in word.
Take a Load Off Texas.
Right. You can go to Oncor.com. And there should be an energy efficiency link on that. You may have to dig down a little bit deeper. At one time we were on the landing page, but I'm not sure we're there now.
I found it pretty easily. Yeah.
Okay, good.
And it has a great It's a really good website with lots of resources. And so I can't recommend that enough. It was a really good, very informative. I was able to write
Great.
just the promotional information about this lecture based on the website. So it was very,
Good.
very helpful.
And I would also suggest the Department of Energy and Energy Star. They both have some good energy efficiency tips. In fact, our energy efficiency tips brochure that we've used for years actually an Energy Star approved document.
Great.
So there's some good information out there from the government for once. No.
All right. One more question. What's your opinion of spray foam insulation for the home compared to other types of insulation?
I love it. I personally love it. If I was building a new home, that's what I would do. Your attic almost becomes like living in an igloo cooler because that's basically what it is. Now there's two things on a spray in. It can be retrofitted. You can put it in an existing home, but they usually have to take out all the existing insulation, so it can be a little labor intensive.
You can't layer.
Right.
Okay.
Right, it can be, but two things on foam. One is it is more expensive, but it does seal, and there's a high level of R value to it. So the insulation levels are fantastic, and it does make for a more comfortable attic. You know, we can't keep candles or soft stuff in the attic because they'll melt in the winter, in the summer. You know, with the foam, especially if you do both tops and bottoms, and most people just do one of the, or just do the tops because that makes the storage space more comfortable, but you can do both. It's more expensive. The other thing that I have seen in a few extreme cases, and usually this is installers that were brand new to it or didn't understand the technology, is they make the house so tight, or they make the attic so tight that it starts to sweat. And you have mildew problems, you have mold problems. So you still need that ventilation up there. You still need the soffit vents or an attic vent or something that's still moving air in there, because it's still going to get moist, you know, on our springs and falls. When we get a lot of rain, you're still going to have some moisture in there. So you got to have a way to let it dry out. So making sure that if you do that, make sure that your installer has the adequate airflow going through.
Yeah, and knows what they're doing. Okay.
Yes.
So what about radiant barrier? Are you familiar with radiant barrier?
Right. Do you feel about the state hasn't allowed us to do that. Several years ago, I went to a seminar thing out on the East Coast from Duke University, and they had built a house with all these different measures in it. And what they showed us was a radiant barrier can be useful in reflecting the heat back, but again, it's hard to put up. A lot of people try to do it themselves, and you get sags and you get things in there, and it's not always worked the best. It's one of those things that's I wouldn't spend $1,000 to do it, but if I was adding new insulation and for another $100 or $200 they wanted to put up that, then I would definitely do it. The state has just never allowed us to pay an incentive for it.
Okay, so regarding incentives, who pays for those? So is that funding through a grant, or is it through the state or federal government that pays for this?
It's everybody on this call.
Okay.
I think our rate now is 0.00013 cent for every kWh you use.
Okay.
You pay into the energy efficiency fund that goes to manage our programs. So every ratepayer in the state pays for it, which is why we try really hard to make our programs system-wide. You know, it's real easy for me to sign an air conditioning contractor up in Grapevine. It's a lot harder to sign one up in Brownwood or in Big Spring.
Yeah.
Or in Mahia, because usually there's only one or two guys there, and they don't really need the business that they would bring by doing our program. Yeah. So we have to work really hard on getting the folks outside the metro areas. Because their ratepayers pay it into it just like the ones in Mesquite and Dallas do. And the reason they do that is because they see it as a benefit to everybody. That every time we pay an incentive, it reduces the demand and the peak load for the whole area. So it's kind of, we're all contributing to that. If you see them, there's some stories during the ice storm about us raising energy efficiency levels for us to do more. Well, what they're basically talking about is raising your rates to pay for that.
Right.
So it's kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't type thing. Yeah. Because it all comes back to us ratepayers, and I'm one too. So it is. That's where the funds come from.
Interesting.
It's something I should have covered right up front.
Yeah. So you're moving into the Energy Star program. You're transitioning into a different division. Tell us a little bit about that before we wrap up.
Sure. I'm keeping the home energy efficiency program, so I'll still manage that. It's kind of one of those things. You did such a good job. Let's give you more work, but that's okay. But it's done through a third-party implementer, and we'll work strictly with builders. So these builders that are coming into the Metroplex that are building homes, we'll be encouraging them to do above code energy efficiency measures, which would mean foam insulation, could mean foam insulation, being LED light bulbs, actually EV charging stations. If that we've got a real small incentive of that. You can do it individually. If somebody wanted to put a 22 SEER in some of their homes, then we would pay for that. But if they wanted to bundle 8 or 9 measures together, all Energy Star appliances, all LED light bulbs, an EV charger station, solar panels is even a small part of that. So it's something to encourage the builder to build a more efficient home for we as home buyers will have lower usage.
Yeah,
we think it's going to be a big program. We think it's going to be really successful because I live south of Dallas in kind of the outlying areas. But just in the last couple of months, they've announced about 3,500 homes being built within a 5-mile radius of my house.
Really?
So if I'm seeing that here, I can imagine what they're seeing up in McKinney and Forney and those areas. So it's people like living down here with us.
Yeah. Well, good. That sounds like it's going to help our state overall be better stewards of energy in general.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And that's my goal. I don't consider myself a green power or a greenie or an environmentalist. I see myself as a realist. That's what's good. We during COVID, the best thing happened was we had our first grandchild. And you start looking at that and you start seeing that the world is a little bigger than you. And, so I want to be realistic. I want to do things that make sense.
Yeah.
I don't want people putting $100,000 solar array on their house when they don't need it, when they have an air conditioner that's 40 years old, or they've got no insulation. Take care of that stuff first and then go buy the solar system.
Yeah. And that's one thing I think for Keep Grapevine Beautiful was we want to be able to offer opportunities like you and other experts to come in and inform residents and citizens that can make educated choices on, things like solar, how we can save electricity, how we can save water, that kind of stuff, that be more educated so that we can make those decisions.
Absolutely. And that's why I enjoy doing this.
Good. Well, we certainly appreciate your time so very much, Jeff. Ladies and gentlemen, again, we thank you for attending tonight. We hope you can join us in August for our Eco Talk on the 25th. The title is Facts You Didn't Know About Grapevine Lake. So many of you have asked about the Army Corps of Engineers role in Grapevine Lake and the maintenance and operation of the dam. And we also will have a water biologist from TCEQ, Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, that will come and talk with us about the water quality of Grapevine Lake. So later this week, you'll receive a link from me with to register for the August Eco Talk. Also, you'll be able to watch this video on our YouTube channel. I'll send you a link for that. And also, if you'll just take a few minutes to complete our short survey about the Eco Talk this month and let us know, provide your feedback, because again, we listen to what you're interested in learning more about. And like I mentioned, this lecture is a result of your interest and feedback. And so we were happy that Jeff was available. So thank you again, Jeff, and for Oncor and spending your evening with us. Ladies and gentlemen, we hope that everyone has a good evening, and I look forward to seeing you next month. Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy.
Thanks a lot.